Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you my favourite Ark Tames. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. In at number 10 we've got the Reaper, and come on, this does definitely deserve to be on the list. It is a cool xenomorph alien type creature that just fits into its map so well, and that is something which I really can say about this creature. It is just so well fitting to Aberration, and especially considering that Aberration, sorry, pronounced it wrong the first time, is the most popular map really among a lot of Ark players. I know Ragnarok's technically top of the roost, but Aberration still gets a lot of respect among the community, and it is very highly regarded, and obviously the Reaper is as well, especially considering the R Reapers do exist on Gen 2, and absolute cheese to tame. The atmosphere is kind of lost with these things on that map, but still they are the same great creatures. So taming methods is insanely cool. Essentially what you do is you get a Reaper Queen, and then you have to lower it down to I think under 1,000 health, and then from there you're going to get yourself impregnated by the Reaper Queen. Then you get loads of XP to get 100% effectiveness, probably get some pheromone glands, so when the baby does actually emerge out of you, you know, it's not going to kill you, but you know, it might kill you anyway. And then once you've tamed one, you've got yourself a beast of a creature that just does so much damage. It has a wealth of abilities. It can go underground. It can also slow down creatures with its tail attack. Sadly, the Reaper Queen has an ability where it will deal torpor to creatures. The Reaper King doesn't do this, and you can't tame Reaper Queens. That's the only real shame about these creatures. So continuing on the list, we have got the Crystal Wyverns. And why am I not putting just the generic normal Wyverns on, or just what my favourite Wyvern is in general? Well, I find with the Crystal Wyverns, the abilities that they have are much more imaginative, and also just as a creature in itself, they are just nicer to me, as they are much easier to tame, and again, those elemental abilities are fantastic, and in my opinion, much better than the ones that you'll get on the generic fire, poison, or lightning wyvern. Yes, obviously, you've got the ice wyverns as well, but I don't really tend to use those things whatsoever. I really haven't done much with them. My personal favourite for Crystal Wyvern is the Blood Crystal Wyvern, by the way. This is the Tropical Crystal Wyvern that you're seeing right now, and obviously the Ember Crystal Wyvern does exist as well. They are all great wyverns for use, and their taming method is a lot simpler than just going into a trench, stealing an egg and raising it. Sounds easy on paper, but when there's loads of wyverns about, it can be really difficult. Essentially, you need to be level 60. No runs really aren't very difficult to do, so you shouldn't have too much of an issue with this. Then after that, you're going to want to knock out a Crystal Wyvern to get the Primal Crystal, and then it's simply a passive tame. Find the Wyvern of your choice. There's a specific spot on its back where you can stand and you won't fall off while it's flying around, and just keep pressing E every time it tells you to feed it some crystal, and boom, like that, you've got yourself a Crystal Wyvern of whatever type you've gone for. And also they require no saddle like any normal wyvern, so you can ride them just like that. Now, ever since the Shadowmane did release on Gen 2, it has been a fan favourite of many, and it definitely is a favourite of mine too. They are just so jam-packed full of abilities, you really can't diss them for all that they do as creatures. They are versatile, fast-moving creatures that do have the hydration buff, which actually the Crystal Wyvern has as well, although a little bit irrelevant considering that they are flyers and they can't really go into the water. But if you touch their wings on the water, then you can get that hydration buff. So maybe if you're in a combat situation, that might be useful to you. But either way, talking about the Shadowmane again, yes, they've got that hydration buff. They also have a pack buff. They can go invisible. I can't remember which one can out of male and female, but you do need both present at the time, I'm pretty sure. On top of that, they are really fast swimmers as well. So if you want to do the Moda with these things, it is actually a pretty nice creature to use. And actually, that's all I've been using for the Moda boss fight recently, because I've been doing a little bit of Gen 1 stuff, and this has really been a good one for me. On top of that, they just deal loads of damage. They are really nice, versatile, easy, mobile creatures to use. The only downside is their taming method. So in at number 7, we have got the Desmodus, and come on, look at this vampire bat of sorts. It really is a cool creature just from its model design. But why is it such a favorite of mine? Namely, it has that gliding ability, and that is something which I really look for in a flyer. It makes them so much nicer and more versatile to use. just as a general creature. These things can also farm blood bags for one of my creatures, which is also on this list as well, one of the creatures that I put on later on, and blood bags is going to be the food of choice to tame that thing. You can probably guess what it is already, but that is also why I love these creatures a lot. And on top of that, they have Sanguine Elixir, which is just a cheat for tames, 30% of that tame done with just a click of a button. It is insane really what you can do with that. They can also just grapple onto any kind of wall vertical surface like a Tapijara, and they are much better than a Tapijara. I know there's some Tapijara fans out there, but still, this is just a much better creature. And if you have Field downloaded, because it is a free DLC after all, then really tame these things already, because they are just so good. In at number 5, we have got the Argentavis, and this creature really does deserve to be here. Come on, the nostalgia around this creature is just absolutely immense, and the amount of times that this tame has helped me out along my way in Ark really gives myself a much higher perspective of this creature. You might say the Desmodus is just a better flyer and a better creature overall, and largely I might agree with you on that, but still the RG holds the place in my heart for the better creature. Also, I do a lot of metal gathering as a PvE player, and the fact that it has weight reduction on things like metal, crystal and obsidian make this thing an absolute dream to use, especially when paired with an Anki and a Dodic. You can just get so much of that metal gathering done. It is just nice to have, so nice to use, and generally is like a go-to creature that I think all of you out there should be using, because come on, the RG is available on pretty much every map besides Gen 1 and Operation. Not sure if they're on Gen 2, but they're on the island and all those kind of basic maps. They're sort of basic, just very well-known creature that gets a lot of things done, and sometimes the simple one is the one that really works the best in a lot of given scenarios, and this is where the RG definitely does excel. They also do have a nice regen buff if they kill something, and on top of that as well, they do have a portable smithy as a saddle, so when I'm going caving, it's nice to repair all of my armor and weapons in the RG saddle, because I always have some metal in there, because those pesky arthropleurs will always be breaking my armor and weapons. Now, the Baryonyx is one of those creatures where, again, it kind of does come down to nostalgia as well, and just how much I've used this creature. You might say the Shadowmane is a better creature for caving, and I might agree with you on that as well. I know I'm kind of repeating what I'm saying with the RG, but it's a similar thing. The Baryonyx is just one of those simple tames where it does everything for me, and it spawns on loads of maps. It's really accessible and really easy to tame, really easy to use. Not saying the Shadowmane isn't at all, and I really do love that creature, but this is still what I prefer as a general thing. If someone says, well, would you rather only use the Shadowmane or only use the Barry, I would probably still go with the Barry, which might seem a little bit crazy to you, but as a PvE player, it's quite chill to ride around on this thing, and I really just like it as a tame. They can jump around as well. They've got very reasonable health. They do quite a lot of damage as well, especially considering their size. That's why they can fit into pretty much any cave. And they are pretty mobile too, which I really do like to see in a carnivore. I know it's kind of a bit more of a pescivore, but still, you know, it falls under the same bracket. It is still a meat eater. Also, you did see they have a spin attack there as well, which can stun creatures up to the size of a Megalodon, which is pretty nice, isn't it? It's just a chilled, really easy to tame, basic knockout creature that does all the basic needs that I need it to do, and for that, I really love it. Coming in at number 3, we have got the Maewing. Come on, I love to travel around the Ark map, and this creature really does help me to do that with a lot of given success. They are fast, agile gliders that you can unlock from an absurdly low level. I think it's level 18 when you unlock their saddle. I usually get them at like level 21, level 22, because obviously you can unlock trank arrows then, and they're much easier to knock out. If you've got a couple of signs and some trank arrows, there you go. That's the basic trap done for you. They're not going to break any of the trap as well, because they don't really tend to do that. They'll just try and run away, but they'll be stuck in obviously, and then you can just knock them out like that. Easy. You can even go for quite a high level one as well. I find they don't take too much time to tame, especially on just basic single player rates. I know that's 2.5 times official, but still, you know, I tend to not really play on official. And for you official players out there, I want to know actually, how long does it take you to tame a creature like a Maewing? That's why I don't actually really do a lot of official, because I find it a little bit daunting. I've done it in my past. A lot of like 2015, 2016 stuff was all on official settings, but I do like the boosted settings because I'm less of a let's get on the grind person nowadays. They're also just great at the Corporal Fiend Trough and can gather loads of berries too. Really nice, well-rounded creatures and very deserving of the number 3 spot. At number 2, we have got the Bloodstalker, and I just love this creature as an underwater exploration mount and as a general travel mount. And over the past few months, it has really become one of my favorites, and little creatures have done that in a time frame like the Bloodstalker. Yes, I've been using it ever since Gen 1 came out, but I haven't been using it to the extent that I've been using it currently in terms of just like what I use it for now, until, you know, quite recently. They are the top underwater mount for me. They are fast, agile, they can skate across the top of the water. The Maewing can do that too, but you can also see the aggros of all the creatures, and in a low visibility environment like the underwater space of Ark, because it tends to not be the most visible thing in the world, it's really nice to see. You can evade danger with absolute ease, and then you don't have to dismount said underwater creature when you get onto land. You can just keep going around and traveling around the map with immense speed on these things. And this is actually kind of when I started using the Bloodstalker, when this B-roll was taken, so I'm a little bit shaky in terms of all of the gliding around stuff, but you know, I'm a little bit better now. I should probably re-record some of these B-rolls so it looks like I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit more for the creatures that I'm using a lot more nowadays, because my stuff has changed a little bit since I've been making these B-rolls, because they're a little bit old nowadays. I should update them all, and obviously I will update them all when we go into full ASA mode where all the maps are out as well, and obviously Ark 2 stuff, if that's even a thing that will ever release in my lifetime. Who even knows at this point? But yeah, really fast, agile creatures, love them to bits, love their taming method, love their model design, really love how they move around. They are just so versatile, agile creatures, great in the water, great on the land, great for attacking, great creatures. And in number 1 is the Dinos. These are just my favourite Ark creatures, and over the past few years, I've been kind of bouncing back between the Carno and this creature, and I know the Carno is really something which you probably wouldn't expect to be my favourite Ark creature out there, but I've really been loving that creature. I'll give it an honourable mention because I've used it for literally like 8 years now, however long since Ark has even been released, back in like June of 2015, something around that time. I think it was released into early access. Like, honestly, insane creature, love that thing to bits. But the Dinos is taking the crown today because I think it really does deserve to be on the list for many reasons. It can deal bleed damage to bosses. It is an extremely fast, agile mount that also has the pack buff. No kind of water traveling abilities in terms of all of that, but the Bloodstalker handles all of that for me. I don't need it. And then for underwater battles, I'll use something like Shadowmane or Baryonyx would be a very nice suggestion as well for the Moda, but I rarely do that boss. I'm just doing it a little bit more now because it's on my mind a little bit more, because I'm playing through Gen 1 again, because I'm just refreshing my mind and all these things. I'm kind of gradually replaying through all the maps, and I'm at Gen 1 at the moment, so it'll be Gen 2 after that, because I've played Extinction, now I'm on Gen 1, and, you know, thus continuing on like that. But yeah, they're also really agile traveling mounts as well, very mobile for a carnivore, and I love the size of these things as well. Small, they can get around so easily, don't take any fall damage. As you can see, they can scale any kind of wall or vertical surface. Really great caving creatures as well, actually, because of their size. Truly the best Ark creature in my opinion. The top 10 most bang for your buck Ark Tames. First up, in at number 10, we have got the Rex, and this creature definitely does deserve to be here for so many reasons. Partly just because it's just a very well-rounded carnivore, and also partly because now on ASA, this thing is so ridiculously easy to tame. Like, honestly, it is now like probably one of the easiest tames in the game with that new baby feature, as it's so easy to kill a Rex. It's a lot harder to knock one out, and if it's got a corresponding baby along with it, obviously you might have to kill 2 Rexes, but still, it's really not going to be that bad. And sometimes you can just find a Rex lying around, and all you have to do is press a button, and then boom, like that, you've got yourself a Rex. And the saddles really aren't that expensive, and they can be found in drops all over the place, so you basically have to put no effort into tame one of these things, even on normal Ark as well. Yes, those saddles are going to be harder to find because the drops are obviously a lot less OP, depending on obviously like what your server's like or what your single player's like, but on default they tend to be a lot less OP, and obviously that baby taming feature is not there, but still you can get loads of bang for your buck out of the Rex in both versions of Ark, especially in ASA, for all of those reasons which I have just given. So the Rex definitely is deserving of this number 10 spot. Next up, we have got the Crystal Wyvern, and this creature is here. It's just so easy to tame, and yes, it is capped behind a level 65, and you do have to knock out another crystal wyvern to get that primal crystal, but it really is not that bad. And for the creature that you get, I don't really get why more people don't talk about these creatures. I just feel like you get so much for so little, and you could kind of talk about the normal wyvern in this way as well, but I would counteract that a bit, as I would say the tame method is significantly harder than with a creature like this, so I think it is definitely deserving of that spot just because of how easy this thing's tame method is. I know it could be more simple because getting that primal crystal can be a little bit of a challenge, although I've never really struggled with it, and the level 65 is a little bit of a pain, but there isn't too much of an issue in today's Ark because a note run is very easily achievable for any level of play. You just need to know where the notes are, and that is really simply it. It's so simple and so trivial that this creature really has to be on the list, and it is definitely deserving of this spot. I really think you can just get so much out of the crystal wyvern, and it's so easy to tame. It really does deserve to be on this spot in this because it's just such a good, well-rounded flyer. You get so much out of it in the damage department, the speed department, maybe not in the turning cycle department, but there's so much use out of this creature. Next up, we have got the Beals, and this is going to be your go-to creature for getting any kind of cementing paste, and they are so easy to tame. Like, honestly, one of the easiest tames in the game by far. Very simple knockout, and you're going to have no issue with it. The only real issue is the biome it spawns in is the swamp, and can be a little bit annoying, but you're just going to get so much cementing paste out of these things, and also you're just going to have a really great underwater creature. It is really worth investing in one of these things and getting yourself one and using it for that cementing paste gathering, and just using it as a general creature. It's so nice, and it's got so many well-known uses. It's just people don't really use it enough, and it's so easy to tame. It is very deserving of this spot on the list, and I don't get why more people don't talk about it. But, you know, I did used to be one of those people back in the days, but nowadays I really do respect the Beals, and I love all of its uses, and I really hope that at some point in the future of your Ark playing, if you don't already, you tame yourself a Beals or Bufo. You will definitely not regret getting one. Next up, we have got the Maewing, and this is just one of those creatures where it is just so good for doing any kind of traveling around the map, and it is ridiculously easy to trap and then just a knockout tame. Very trivial and very simple, and you're going to have no issues with taming this thing whatsoever, as long as you just take that small minor step of preparation to actually taming one of these things. And once you have one, you're going to have yourself a really great time with this extremely fast traveling mount that also acts as a portable feeding trough. So for you breeding enthusiasts out there, you also do have a great creature for you, which is going to really level up your Ark playing if you do not have one already. But to everyone else out there who doesn't really do a lot of breeding, you can still use this thing as an insanely fast travel mount. They travel at ripping speeds, and it's so OP, and in some ways you could say even game breaking at how you can get these things at such an early level. It's like it's even pre-20, I think it's level 19 when you unlock the saddle for this thing. Either way, it is very early on, and I cannot recommend a Maewing highly enough. Really, at some point, get yourself one of these creatures. You will definitely not regret getting one. Now, the Thyla is up next, and I think this is pretty trivial to tame. I know I've said that word a lot, and I've been throwing it around, but this isn't very difficult to trap, and the knockout tame, again, very easy. Just have to take the necessary precautions, and that goes for most things. Usually, tames will be difficult just because you don't spend that small amount of time preparing, but sometimes it can also just be the tame is horrible to do, and that's not the case for the Thyla whatsoever. And with the amount of utility you can get out of this creature, it is a no-brainer, and everyone really should be taming one of these things at some point in their Ark playing. Like, it's, again, just, it's a no-brainer. You would get one of these things, and then they deal the bleed ability, so you can really take out things insanely quickly. They can climb any kind of wall or vertical surface, or really any surface pretty much, as long as it's not over 90 degrees. Which can be a little bit of an issue in ASA actually, as the terrain is quite buggy in places and often goes a lot steeper than 90 degrees, so you always do want to be careful. But I have managed to ram a Carno up a mountain before, so I'm sure there are loads of ways of getting around everything, but they do get stuck quite a lot in comparison to just normal Ark, I'm going to say ASE. Still kind of weird that we're calling it that, but it does make sense. ASA is not in the best state right now, but we'll see what happens with the Center and Scorched, and I will rejudge my judgments then. Also, these creatures, if you haven't noticed, just really do excel in their mobility, not just because they can climb any kind of wall or vertical surface. It's just because they have a lot of speed, they can jump around, and they're very agile in their movement, and their bleed ability just really does help out because they can deal even more damage to creatures and just really get everything done, because it's nice to have a creature which can travel at such insane speeds and also absolutely demolish everything in its path as well. The Thyla is definitely a big recommendation of mine, especially considering it spawns on the island, and it is extremely accessible to every single Ark player out there. Next up, at number 5, we have got the Baryonyx, and I'm putting this thing higher than the Thyla, which some people might say, oh, why are you doing that? Well, this thing is such an insane caving creature. The Thyla is simply too wide in a lot of cases to fit into some caves, and although, yes, it can be good, and cryopods exist and all of that, still go back to the Baryonyx, and the Baryonyx is pretty much the same difficulty to tame, and I feel like you get a lot more use out of it because it's also a really great underwater creature for doing all this underwater caves as well, something which the Thyla really does not excel at. It can also stun creatures up to the size of a megalodon underwater, which you'll see a little bit later, and it still has that jumping ability that the Thyla has. Obviously, it can't climb any kind of wall or vertical surface, but you know, it's not really going to be used for traveling, and I would say, I'm stumbling over my words here, that doing caves is more important than traveling around the map, because yes, exploring will be fun and transporting goods around the map is, like, you could say essential in ways. Also doing the caves is essential, and in some ways, like, well, it just is essential. There's no really getting around it unless you get someone else to do all the caves for you, but you know, that's probably not going to happen, and it's a bit of an unnecessary point. But the Baryonyx really is super easy to tame, and you'll get so much use out of it. It is a no-brainer to tame. Next up, we have got the Bloodstalker, and this creature is here because it's the best underwater creature in my opinion, and although maybe a little bit of a challenge to tame, the use I get out of this creature is so high. I have to put it on this list, but you know, it does have a little bit of a setback, which is why it's not getting in the top 3 for its tame method, because it can be pretty annoying a lot of the time, especially considering the biome and considering how actually annoying it is to get all of those blood bags. But you can use something like the Desmodus as well, and that will definitely help you out. But you can just get so much use for underwater travel out of this creature. It really does need to be on this list, and it's such a great traveling mount as well. Again, it really does hone in on this being such a great creature for all things traveling, and it's pretty decent at combat as well, and you kind of get a free awesome spyglass mod essentially on just normal Ark, and you get that on ASA as well. Obviously that mod is free, but it's not accessible to all players out there, and you get that with this creature. The only real downside obviously being that it does respawn only on Genesis Part 1 and Genesis Part 2, so it is not available in ASA at the moment. Also, do tell me if I got the maps wrong on that one, because it might be on more or it might not be on more, so comment down below if I did actually miss a map, because you know, I do use you sometimes to expand my Ark knowledge, and as far as I'm concerned they're only on Gen 1 and Gen 2, but you know, they might be on Field or something like that. But you know, I'm not really knowledgeable on that map because I've hardly even played any of it. Some people might be shocked to hear that, but that's me on my fielder status. Either way, Bloodstalker, really great creature. Would definitely advise to tame one if you can. In number 3, we have got the Desmodus, and this does just get a little bit of a level up over the Bloodstalker because it makes tons of blood bags, like absolute blood bag farm, can go invisible in the night, and also has Sanguine Elixir, which is an absolute game changer for PvE players alike, and it would be PvP players as well. Just because I do a lot of taming, it really is a huge game changer to me, and taming a low level one really is not that difficult, and then from there taming a really high level one really is not that bad. You can farm blood bags, but firstly you can just tame a really low level one which basically hits any blood bags, and then boom, like that. You don't even need to worry about effectiveness and all of that. Just tame one, get a saddle for it, and ride around on it and farm those blood bags, and then boom, you can tame yourself a really high level one next, and then just ditch that low level one. You're not really gonna need it anymore. Well, keep it as a backup, of course, because you never know, some really horrible stuff can happen when you're out exploring. Always keep some backup flyers in your base, you know, just very common thing to do, and a lot of people don't do it, so make sure you do that. Ark tips, guys. Next up, we have got the Deinonychus, and this creature is just so easy to tame. You just steal that egg and then raise it. I know it does maybe seem like a little bit difficult, because like raiding wyvern trenches is extremely difficult, but you can really just easily. They're not in any kind of trench, they're pretty much just out in the open in the chocolate biome, and as long as you can get away with something, you can maybe even do it with a pteranodon, or you don't even need a pteranodon and you can just leg it, or you know, just just spend a life and then get your body back. So just kind of run far enough away. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, Dinos X is not the hardest thing which you'll encounter in the world, and once you tame one, you're going to have yourself an ultimate boss creature dealing tons and tons of damage. It really is a no-brainer to get one of these things, and they also deal bleed damage to bosses as well, which as far as I'm concerned, no other creature does. They also have insane mobility as well, and they take no full damage. They have the pack buff, which is a nice neat ability, and as you can see, they really do travel at ripping speed, and you know that obviously makes them a really great traveling mount. And with that added no full damage, it really takes away a lot of inconvenience from having to dismount just before you hit the ground to not take any fall damage. These things can also kind of parkour up walls as well, which does hugely benefit them in the mobility. Obviously, they don't do it quite as elegantly as a Thyla, essentially just jumping up, and it does take a little bit more effort to get that working, and because it's a little bit more finicky, at least for me it was when I first started using these things. But once you get over that small hurdle, you really are going to enjoy these creatures way more than a creature like the Thyla, and they're easier to tame, and you can just get so much more use out of them. And at number 1, we've got the RG, and this is just the king of productivity. Extremely easy to tame with a very simple wooden trap, just requiring a few trank arrows to knock out. Well, more than a few, but it really is not that many. And obviously the saddle is unlocked in the late 60s, but still, that really isn't too much of a hindrance with a note run, and they are just too good to miss, especially considering they spawn on the island. They're accessible to everyone out there. Their saddle acts as a portable smithy, so if you break any metal tools along your journey, or metal gear, especially if you're going caving, you can easily just repair it without having to head all the way back to base, because sometimes that can be an absolute pain and it will just waste your time, whereas with this creature you can be quick, convenient and efficient. Also, they hold a Dodic or an Anki. You can use them to gather any kind of metal, flint, rock or stone. Rock and stone are the same thing, aren't they? Stone, it's not called rock in this game. What's happening to me? Either way, you can get tons of that as well, and then we'll do weight reduction on things like metal, crystal and obsidian. On the RG, you can take tons of those resources back to your base, and you don't have to mess around with things like the Pteranodon having extremely low weight stats. Their stamina is also really great and can carry them over huge distances. Also, they do have a nice, neat little regen buff as well, which will aid you in any kind of combat scenario, probably after the combat's finished, as you can just quickly heal up like that. And also, on top of this, they can carry an extra small creature in their mouth as well. Don't really know why you do it, but it is a nice, neat feature. And give it up for our patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, Dominic Maciejewski, sorry about that name, and everyone else that's on this list. All the people I've mentioned are paid members, and if you feel like that's something you want a shout out at the end of the video, go join the Patreon or become a paid YouTube member.